Hello and welcome. I'm Nadia and I'm so delighted today on this Valentine's Day, the 14th of February, to be joined by Marnie Maton, who has written an extraordinary book, and it's called Vote for You, Take Your Seat at the Table. So, Marnie, a very warm welcome, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Nadia.
Nadia.
I'm really
And it's
excited
so
to spend time with
because
you.
I thought, yes, delighted. And I thought about, first of all, we'll discuss how you got to be here, which is a lovely story about networking and connecting. And then why are we doing this on Valentine's Day? I thought your book really talks, we speak about romantic love, but there's lots of different kinds of love. And there's love for oneself and appreciation of oneself, right? And I think Vote for You talks about self-empowerment.
That's right, Nadia. I speak about the top 10 non-negotiables, and those are things in your life that you want at work as well as in your personal life. And they include things in great detail, like what time you want to get up in the morning, what time do you want to finish in the day, who do you want to be surrounded by, what kind of leaders do you want to look up to. So the top 10 non-negotiables are about crafting and designing a life that's tailored to what you want in your life.
And isn't that the ultimate? We speak about wealth. What is the ultimate wealth is being able to design your own wealth and your own life and your own schedule, right?
That's right. Absolutely.
And what prompted you? I mean, you have a background in the corporate world. What inspired you to write the book?
Well, I think that I was really fortunate to start my career in consulting and progress into my current role as a chief marketing officer. And I think what really inspired me was that I didn't see a roadmap for how to progress or how to excel in my career and to balance that with my personal life. And so I felt without having a top 10 non-negotiables list, I felt disconnected and unfocused. And when I sat down and wrote in high fidelity what I wanted in both work and life, I felt connected to people. And I also felt really centered. And so I felt the importance of creating this story and this guide so that others could learn about my journey, especially in these times that are changing with rising layoffs across several industries in tech and media. And I wrote about how I crafted my top 10 non-negotiables list during the COVID pandemic, and then also late last year during a corporate layoff.
So you yourself were laid off.
That's right. As a part of the high tech layoffs, I was laid off last year, and I spent some time really crafting what is it that I wanted in my next opportunity. And I wrote my top 10 non-negotiables, and I put that into the world. And in pretty quick order, I was able to move into the role that I'm in right now. So I felt that was an important pause to be able to take that time and then to write it and design it.
So tell us about your role right now.
Sure. I'm Chief Marketing Officer for a healthcare company that focuses on providing quality healthcare access to children across the Southwest.
And in terms of people who are watching you going, so that's all very well for her, to have these non-negotiables. What about me? I don't have the privilege of that. How do you begin to even give yourself permission to say, I deserve certain things?
I think that everybody deserves to essentially take a look inside, take a look at what they're surrounded by, pause, take the inventory, and craft what they think that they want and what they need. And it's important to have a guide. If you don't have a guide, then you don't know where you need to get to. That's why maps are helpful. You have a starting point and an end point. And a list like this can help you create a charted course for a start point and a location and a destination you want to get to.
So what's the most surprising non-negotiable?
I think this most surprising non-negotiable was I absolutely wanted to be back at 5 o'clock on occasions to see my son at Little League baseball practice. So I think that working in now hybrid opportunities, you have that ability to get there, and I think that that's what's critical is finding that balance. You can travel for work, which I do quite a bit, but that it also gives me the opportunity to be home when I need to, and knowing that that's a priority.
And Marnie, how do you think one communicates this to the people that are hiring you without them feeling threatened or that you're being demanding? What advice or guidance do you give there?
I think it's really important to make sure, and I share this in Vote for You, about what's the way to prepare for a job interview, for example. And what it really is it's a match of your skills with their needs. And so it's always important for you to look at the market and see what is it that they need and what of your skill set most complements that. And I think that any employer would really enjoy a candidate that has that level of preparedness and really understands what's driving the business goals, the revenue goals, and the overarching get for that business and for that team.
As women, and again, I'm not saying all women, but I've spoken to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of women over the years, and sometimes women feel that they don't deserve to get the things they really want. Have you experienced that?
I think it's not so much about not deserving. I think it's about living up to the expectations that others around you have. And I think that if you're living towards other people's expectations, then you're not pleasing you're not pleasing anyone. You think you're pleasing them, but you're not pleasing yourself. And so I think it's really important to take that pause and to your point, self-love and self-reflect, so that you are bringing a person that is holistic, not full of resentment, and is present to the opportunities around them.
And Marnie, one of the things I wrote a book called Own Your Space, and one of the chapters is around owning your ask and the ability, and I commend you for this, right? That you had the ability to say, this is my non-negotiable, and to ask for it. And for anyone who's joining us right now, I'm talking to Marnie Maton, and she has written a book. Let me show you the book cover. It is called Vote for You, Take Your Seat at the Table. And we're talking about how you prioritize yourself. And Marnie's come up with a list of non-negotiables. She said when she was laid off, in my next job, these are the things that are non-negotiable for me. And again, we're talking about then how do you ask for those things? So one of the things right now is people really do want flexibility. And the trend in some organizations is to ask people to go back more and more. So what advice or guidance do you give to people who are going, I want the flexibility. How do I insist on it?
I mean, I think that this is about knowing how important that flexibility is to you. Is it a mandatory? And it was absolutely on my list of things. I wanted hybrid. I wanted an opportunity to go into the office, and I wanted an opportunity to travel. I had felt that during COVID, I was 100% remote, and that actually didn't suit me because I enjoyed having some connectivity in person. And so I think it's important for you to just have a strong sense of how important is it for you. It does not impact performance. I think effectiveness is, how hard you work and how much time you commit. But I do think that it's your own value. And as I think of the list, you have to determine how critical it is for you, and then go out there and make that ask, or be very specific about what types of roles you're looking for. If it's a in-person role, that might not be the role for you.
And have the confidence. Doesn't it so much come back to the confidence to be discerning? But I think each and every one of us needs to come up with our list of non-negotiables? What are the things, and don't you think that extends to relationships? It extends to life in general. What are the things I can live with, and what are the things that for me are absolute no's, right?
Absolutely.
Now, what has your response been to the book? What do people come up to you and say?
It's been overwhelming, actually. It's been such a labor of love and connectedness. I think that I talk about how you might feel disconnected after the pandemic. People say that we're in a huge loneliness epidemic. 1 in 2 people, says the Surgeon General of the US. And this book has been this incredible gift of connectedness. It's brought my family and good friends and colleagues and everyone at a cross section together. And so I feel like very blessed, and just so happy that it's created that opportunity for people to have more connections through me and with one another.
And have people come up to you and said, Marnie, this is my non-negotiable? You've come up with your list. Have people added to the list and said, when it comes down to it, these are the things that for me are NNs?
You know, absolutely. I was speaking with a woman who was laid off recently, and she was looking for her new product management role. And she said, I just am looking for a particular title. And I said, that's not specific enough. What is it that you actually want to be learning? What is interesting? What is exciting? You can find a product role, but does it speak to how you want to grow or who you want to be surrounded by? And so I think it's really a yes and. It's you can go get that title, but you can also find things that are exciting about the role that make it complementary to the business as well as to you as an individual.
So expand on that. You're saying, for example, if you get into a situation or an organization that you really like, and maybe that specific role is not available, you don't want to be rigid about your non-negotiable, but you might want to pivot or find an alternative. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that it's important for you to go into that role knowing that it's not just that title.
I hear you.
Right. There's more to learn than a title when you go to an organization.
Oh, certainly. And in terms of women role models, people that you look at and say they had their non-negotiables, they found their careers, who comes to mind?
I mean, Julia Childs didn't learn to cook until her 40s. And so I love that she found her passion later in life and was able to demonstrate that love to people across the globe. And also RGB, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I think also was really, really focused in her areas that she was able to come up in. And I think you could see that reflected at the Supreme Court. So those are 2 women I would have loved to have met.
And it's interesting, sometimes, and in my experience of teaching and training and doing workshops around confidence, people are surprised when they do ask and they actually get what they ask for. I love the saying, if you don't ask, you don't get. If you ask, you may not always get exactly what you want, but if you don't ask, you don't get. And why I so enjoyed your book was part of it is saying, give yourself permission to ask.
Absolutely. That's 100% right.
And again, it's so much of how you ask, but something, Marnie, I find fascinating, and I continue to, is guys will think nothing of being on the golf course and saying, hi, bud, you know that Marnie Maton, I really want to meet her because she's working for this healthcare company. I need an intro. And the guy will say, sure. As women, not only do we not do that to each other, but if someone does that to us, we feel like they're being a little bit too forward. So one of the strategies that I've come up with is to say, Marnie, so-and-so. Do you have any advice or guidance for me? Because that way I feel more comfortable asking.
That's wonderful.
So, just the idea of whoever's watching us right now, I'm talking to Marnie Maton. Her book is Vote for You, Take Your Seat at the Table. And Marnie, when she was laid off, came up with her non-negotiables, the things that she said, in my next career. Now, I'm so curious, you've come up with 10 right now in your role. How many of those have you actually received and are living, so to speak?
I would have to say I have I'll say 9.5, 10, right? So
Okay.
it is what I wanted. I wanted to craft and tailor, and it has the leadership team that I enjoy learning from, and it has fantastic colleagues that I get to work alongside. And it's also mission based. I love healthcare access and providing equitable quality care to communities. That's really an awesome and amazing opportunity. So it really worked.
You know, it's so interesting, Marnie, you say people. So because I am totally people orientated, relationship orientated, now would you say your relationship versus task, or completely in between?
I would say both. I would
Okay.
say relationship is so important and tasks are also really important. So
So for me, a non-negotiable would definitely be the work environment, the people, which brings us to how I got to meet you, which I just love the story. And I worked with a CNN producer called Keisha Reed, and Keisha works with you. And she said, Nadia, you have to meet Marnie Maton. And that brought us together. So a non-negotiable for me would, are you working with people who are go-givers as much as go-getters? Are you working with generous individuals who have your back as much as you have theirs, right?
absolutely. And what a gift that the world brought you and Keisha together. And I
Yeah.
feel like it's an incredible gift that now we're brought together. But absolutely, I think that working with people and in my current role, I've brought people with me, and it's incredible to watch people grow with you and in their roles. And so I think that that's a testament as you work with, I'm working with multiple people that have worked in different roles with me over the years. And it's incredible to be able to assemble a team with the best of everything that you've had the opportunity to experience.
I love that. And that being one of your non-negotiables, I'm going to work with great people. So let's go back for those people who are joining us now. Is what, Marnie, you said, what are my non-negotiables? What are the 10 things when I crafted my next career opportunity that I really wanted to make sure that this next phase in my career had? So I know you said you wanted to be at home at 5 p.m. for your son's sports, and you've been able to do that.
I have been able to do that when I can, so more so than I had in the past, and that is really important. And I had wanted to work for a US based healthcare company with a fantastic mission. I had also wanted to work alongside leaders with a lot of great vision and experience that I could learn from.
What was full?
And then I also wanted to be surrounded by like-minded people who wanted to serve in the same way that I served in this role. Time zones were really important. I had worked at a global company previously, so working in Pacific time, I was really focused on working in West Coast time with West Coast-based clients, for example. I wanted to be able to maintain a morning routine. So I start my day with gratitude and meditation and working out, like walking, and those things are allowed. And I wanted to travel, and I wanted to be able to go into an office. I'm rattling them all off, but I think you get the sense.
And, you know, I'd love to hear from people what their non-negotiables are. And then, you know, Marnie, it just brings us to the point of how many people right now are working in environments where they haven't worked out their non-negotiables, and they having to compromise on such basic things. I mean, they're things I'm sure you're okay to compromise, but basically you came up with the things you absolutely won't compromise on. And that brings you joy and makes you productive and is fulfilling.
That's right. Absolutely. And I think it allows you to be very holistic at work, at home. I think people are maybe all in one place and not in the other. And this allows me to bring my whole self to both.
And again, fortunate that you could. And I like your point about flexibility. Even if you come up with an idea as you're listening to Marnie saying, these are the things I would very much like. But your point is that so often we don't even do that. We don't go into a situation saying, what do I really want? And often the non-negotiables don't have to do with the actual title of the job. They have to do with the environment, or is there flexibility? And which brings us to talking to leadership about flexibility and understanding that more and more people are making flexibility a non-negotiable, right?
That's right. I think we are seeing a lot of people moved during the pandemic, and so they changed their entire lives to work in cities that are not New York City or Los Angeles. And so I do think that people do need the flexibility. We do have, as I said, it's also important to pick the types of companies that offer that as well. So you have to be realistic too. I knew this was a hybrid opportunity. I looked for hybrid opportunities. And so that's why it also makes sense.
Marnie Maton, thank you so much. This has been a wonderful conversation. Her book is Vote for You. Take your seat at the table. What are your non-negotiables? I'm Nadia Vilcek. It's been an absolute pleasure being with you. And please, for more conversations like this, tips around how to present information in a more compelling way, how to network, please make sure you follow at Nadia Vilcek. My website is nadiaspeaks.com. Marnie, just remind us, in order to get a hold of you, it is?
You can reach me at marniematon.com or my website, voteforyouguide.com.
voteforyouguide.com. Marnie Maton, thank you for a wonderful Valentine's Day conversation.